Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in private practice in beautiful Encino, California.
And I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified hypnotherapist, here with my lovely friend and partner, Dr. Mitra Rashidian, to share with you some of what we've learned over many years of study and practice on how to feel more loving and more joyful every day of our lives. Mm-hmm. We always dedicate this program to you, our listeners and our viewers, those of you who are watching us. And we're here to let you know that you do contain within you everything you need to feel happy, joyous, and free. The key is learning to access it. And we believe that we come into the world as our authentic, loving, true selves. And that means that we come in here open, curious, honest, sexual, and trusting. And we also have the capacity to be calm, emotionally available, and connected with others, as well as confident and compassionate.
Thank you, Dr. Jaffe, for reminding us about how many, wonderful qualities we have every time we have the show, and we can't get enough of that because for some reason, we forget soon, but, we're here today and we appreciate hearing them again from you, and we love to hear them again as well. So I'm going to invite you all to please join us. Our phone number here live is 951-922-3532. That's 951-922-3532. You can also visit us on our YouTube at heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And we want to, hear from you, your questions, your comments. And today, as you know, we are talking about the taboo topic of, the spoken topic of, and then something that we all do every day, and is about sex. And then we're talking about other aspects of sex during, this Corona-19 pandemic, and about what to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
How do we take care of ourselves, right?
Right.
mean, in one hand, we are saying, oh, don't have sex. In another hand, if you don't have sex, then there are other complications happening. And then the question is, so which side do we go? They're not having sex, they're having sex. And then how do we bring the two together and what to do about it? And, we know that we're hearing from different research groups that they're coming up with information about their very recent findings, which are opening the doors to other research. And we know that there are many organizations that they keep adding to their findings, and they are released. And as they release, we are going to bring them to this program so that you can have the latest information about sexuality and sexual health care and what to do about it. And then what we know today is actually rather alarming, right? Whether you have it has one form of consequences, and not having it can have other forms of consequences. And then there is a safe way of having sex, which is socially and religious-wise is not acceptable. So then I guess we are, going to end up making our own decisions, right? About what works for us.
As we always do.
As we always do, right?
We cannot avoid making our own decisions.
Right.
Whether we choose to listen to Mr. A or Miss B, it doesn't matter because it's our decision. And,
right.
And so what we want to do, of course, is make the most informed decision, and the decision that is in our best interest and in the best interest of those people that we care about.
Exactly. And, sex is a very, our most intimate part of our, relationship existence. And it's something that is like when they I mean, I don't say that, but when we hear that, be careful about having sex. So how would you, when it comes to Corona-19, how do you become careful? What exactly is there that makes you want to be careful about, we understand social distancing. I mean, I see commercials, I see videos that they are broadcasted when people wearing masks and they are kissing each other. They are wearing gloves, but they're still holding hands, right? They go, outside each other's window and they just touch each other. They aim to touch, each other through, the glass that's between the two. And or I saw this amazing video the other day where this guy made this plastic, wardrobe that people could wear and put their hands, their arms in it all the way so that they can hug each other. And then that plastic was like a shield between them. So we see that people are becoming creative about how to connect with each other and how not to lose that touch of connection. And that's really beautiful. I mean, I can't imagine a life without, love in it, or without, intimate relationship in it, because that's definitely cutting a lot out of our lives as human beings, right? So it is there. I mean, we can't really tell each other, or when we are told, sex, it's something that we need to be, stay away from. And then again, we don't hear about it. I mean, the news came in, and then it just went away, right? Everything else sounded so more important. So people may ask, we have a lot to worry about. So why should we worry about having sex or not having sex? Well, some people may choose that way. Some people may choose to prioritize other things for them, and that's okay too. There are so many that they want to continue with their sex life. They really, that's what they want. So how do we help those that they want to continue with their sex life and enjoy it, but at the same time stay safe? And so when we talk about safety, exactly, let's discuss some of what is not, some of the findings that they tell us we need to be mindful of how to have sex, and what to do so we can stay safe.
Right. So it's a good question. It's a good question. And I think there is no definitive scientific evidence right now that we can turn to say this is absolutely safe and this isn't absolutely safe. You and I were talking before about the article that came out recently that said they found that that COVID-19 can be transferred through the man's sperm.
Well, it was found in the man's sperm after they recovered from the illness.
Right. Well,
from the disease.
Or
the virus.
And certainly, if it's there afterwards, it's there during. Right.
Yeah.
So the virus is definitely inside of us, and then the question is, how do we keep from transferring it to our partner? And then the other question, of course, is what if both you and your partner are positive and have it? Then is it safe to continue to have sex unprotected because you both have the virus, or is there some danger, as they found with HIV, that you, even if your partner has HIV and you have HIV, that you can still reinfect your partner by having sex, and so that's problematic as well.
Right. So I like to kind of recap what the article that came with the original finding for those viewers and our listeners who haven't heard about it in our previous program.
Mm-hmm.
So the story started with this article, with this research that took place in Shanghai Municipal Hospital between January 26 of this year through February 16 of this year. The result of this research is published in Journal of American Medical Association, and it is also supported by World Health Organization. So the result shows that in a cohort study that was done, 50 patients who recovered from coronavirus, they were followed so that they can, be monitored for aftercare and status, and to see how they will react once they were released. And in some of the testing that was done, they found coronavirus 19 still existing in men's semen. And then some of them also showed evidence of erectile dysfunction, where previously they didn't have it. So the importance of this study is, first of all, it was the first one. And then second one, this showing that, Corona-19, after patients recover from this situation, it is if it is in the sperm, so then that can have so many danger sides. So can it be transferred to their partner during sex? Are we looking at another sexual transmitted diseases or infection like HIV, AIDS,
Mm-hmm.
or HPV or things like that? What kind of an impact it may have on formation of a fetus? And then basically, so there are so many questions in that way. So that's if somebody recovered, and then those who are asymptomatic, so what about them? They may actually have similar situation going on. So these are all under investigation right now, but it's important to know that if the semen can show having coronavirus positive in it, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
really alarming in terms of having sex, unprotected sex. And then we know that there were other studies that came out. Again, this one was released on May 15, right? And it is published in Psychology Today. And so this was published in Journal of Sexual Medicine, and that was published in May 17, where they say that in a study that was done in UK adult population, they showed not having sex during this time has caused some of them physical illnesses such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, mental illnesses, bladder and bowel problems, and of course, a stress of not having sex.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're saying don't have sex, right? And then we are kind of overlooking, the consequence of that. And then there is no more guideline about what to do next,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see that couples are suffering. We see that the rate of domestic violence has gone up. We see that divorce rate has gone up. Even it's been like about, 3 months?
Mm-hmm.
But we see the high impact of not having sex on couples, on relationships, and health issues. So this is a really major problem that we don't see anybody, or seldom some people talk about it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And one of the reasons, of course, we know sex is taboo, so nobody wants to talk about sex. Everybody does it. We want to sell a camera, we use sex, right?
We want to sell a camera.
Right? We want to sell anything, look at the commercials. They all have some sexual aspect going on with it,
Mm-hmm.
or most of them, right?
Right.
So here's the dynamics. This is really complicated, isn't it? I'm just listening to myself. I'm saying, oh my God,
Yeah. And so, I think we're going to take a break in a moment,
Yeah.
but I think when we come back, I think it's important to talk about why it's so important to be sexual and sexually active.
Okay.
As well as to remain to be as safe as we can in terms of not spreading the virus.
Okay.
So I
Perfect.
think it's important to talk about both sides of that.
Okay, will do. So we see you back shortly after our commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. Please join us. Thank you. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. For those just tuning in, our discussion for this segment is sex and pandemic and what to do about it. And those listening to Heart at KBC Live, we are encouraging you to call in and ask questions. Our phone number here is 951-922-3532. And you may also watch our archive programs at SoundCloud KMET 1490 page. And also you can see us on YouTube at heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And then there are some free download for you there. And also, please share this program with those that you believe they can benefit from this program. And please join us. This program is for you. So tell us what you want to hear, what questions you have so that we can better serve you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Jaffe, welcome back. So we were talking about, the do's and the don'ts that come with having sex, and then the consequence of not having sex. And how do we bring all of that together, and what to do with, how can we help our couples and our and everybody who want to stay sexually active?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so at the beginning, when we do our introduction and I say we are born into the world as our authentic true self, one of the qualities that we come in with is sexual.
Right.
We are all born sexual. And since we're all born that way, it's important for us to recognize how important that is in terms of our health and our development psychologically. And also we now know that to be sexual means to be healthier physically, because we have hormones in our body which are designed to help us to grow in terms of keeping all of our organs healthy, and that our sexual energy and the sexual release that we get just from getting sexually excited. Even if we don't have an orgasm, we are stimulating the hormones inside of us, which create emotional and physical health for us. And of course, having the orgasm is even better, because then we actually get a complete cycle and release that we all need as sexual beings. So to tell somebody to not have sex is to tell them to not be human. And unfortunately, we have created such so many myths around sex and so many do's and don'ts about what's appropriate sexually and not sexually, that people often keep themselves from being their authentic, true sexual selves. You and I see it a lot in our practices, where couples come in and they may not even talk about their sexual issues until a month or a year down the road, where it starts being brought up. But at the beginning, they're talking about everything except sex.
Yeah, actually, I have some of them right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And that's just because of the guilt and shame that we have learned through the past that sex is something that is either dirty or not to be talked about or shameful. And so we've put a lot of do's and don'ts on not only just what we're supposed to do sexually, but also even the discussion of sex. So that even when couples come in and there's confidence, the confidence is assured because they know the therapist isn't going to be talking about it with anyone else. People are still reserved and don't wish to bring it up. Now, as far as COVID goes, we know that there's a lot of unanswered questions, and we really don't know what is safe and what isn't safe. We were talking before about using condoms because now they found the COVID virus in the sperm. And of course, using condoms is a positive thing and is over 99% safe in terms of transmitting the sperm from one partner to another. However, that still doesn't take into consideration what do you do about touching and kissing and the saliva that gets exchanged.
Right.
And so at this point, at least, there's no definitive rule about how safe it is to have sex with your partner. And the only thing that we do know definitively is that there's only one kind of sex that is safe, and that is sex with oneself, and that's masturbation. We were talking in a previous program about some people actually preferring masturbation to having sex with partners. And so now there's actually a term for masturbation. We call sex between opposite sex partners heterosexual sex, and we call sex between same-sex partners homosexual sex. But now we call sex with ourselves solo sex,
Right.
solo sexual. And masturbation is something that generally people, because of a lot of religious ideology and religious beliefs, have termed as something that is sinful and something that one doesn't do or engage in. Some religions have said it's not okay to touch yourself in a sexual manner. And what we've learned about that is that the sex drive is so powerful that people will then find other ways of masturbating without actually touching themselves. Like they'll use a cloth, or they will use a vibrator, or they will use a pillow to stimulate themselves and not actually touch themselves, but they're still masturbating.
Right. I mean, some of the questions that people ask me is, well, masturbation is not only it's a sinful act, but it can actually make the person go blind.
Right, or that was one of the many myths that took place in my generation. I'm 70 now, so when I was 15 or so, that was one of the myths, and that was one of them. And then the other was you'll get warts on your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You get that, and then it's a sinful act, so you go to hell, or it can come up. You can have other physical problems. You carry infections, and then you give yourself infections. There are so many, I can't remember them all right now, but there are so many frightening messages.
Frightening messages, and I'm going to say myths.
Right.
Because nothing has ever been shown to be detrimental about masturbation on a scientific level.
Right.
In fact, the opposite has been proven to be true, because through masturbation, you do stimulate the brain to create the chemicals that we need in order to increase our immune system, as well as keeping a lot of our organs healthy.
Right.
So we know that masturbation is a healthy thing scientifically, but because of the myths because people feel as though there's something wrong with it, they start to believe that that's the case. And I've heard many couples over my 36-year career where one person, and it's usually in a heterosexual couple, it's usually the woman who's telling the man, you shouldn't need to masturbate because I should be enough.
Right.
As though there has to be a choice, as though that
there is a limit,
as though there's a limit, and as though there has to be a choice, and as though the man is robbing the woman.
Right.
And of course, in some cases, if the masturbation is extensive and happening quite a bit, there can be truth in that, but we don't necessarily need to assume that. And certainly, there needs to be discussion of why the person, male or female, is masturbating that much, if in fact it is a problem or it could be a problem, what the motivations are, so that it can be discussed and find some resolutions to it.
I mean, we hear so many things, so many myths about how to have sex, that people actually, or a group of people, have stopped using their own creativity of what else is there to our sexuality, right? So they use porn as an example, they go to movies and they use that as an example, they read books or they hear it from, friends or other things. So there are so many assumptions about how to have sex, and those are just actually limiting the variety of other ways that people can have sex and enjoy it.
And so say more about the limiting.
Well,
how?
For example, people look at sex and having sex as only reaching orgasm, right? So that's if there is no orgasm, then they didn't have sex, right? People looking at making out as not having sex, is just making out, right? So some people think that, there is a degree of intensity, minimal or maximum, between orgasm. So if their orgasm is not as intense as what they see in a porn movie or at a given movie, they kind of become disappointed, right? And then the frequency of sex, how many times you can have sex or when to have sex, and so these are some of the examples, or sex has to be done in a certain way. It all needs to be only romantic, or it needs to be, dirty, or this actually limits our creativity for the time like this. Right now, we are told, that don't have sex. If you do, there are consequences to it. But we're not being told, okay, find other ways of having sex.
And we're also not being told that if you don't, there are consequences to that.
There are consequences. Yes, exactly. There are consequences, like we said it at the beginning of the program today, right? There are actually severe physical illnesses that can happen to human being as a result of not having sex.
And that's not to say that every person who refrains from having sex is going to have illnesses.
Right. Not everybody gets cancer either.
Right. But it does happen. I also want to add that making out for the people who are much younger than you and I is kissing. Right.
Yeah.
But
that's sex.
And kissing is a sexual activity.
Right.
And some people actually orgasm through kissing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or petting.
Right.
Yes. So, but it's a sexual activity, and so when you say being creative, what we're talking about then is acknowledging that sex is a good thing.
Right.
Not only is it a good thing, it's something that we were given at birth.
At birth.
And
it is with us until we die.
And it stays with us until we die. Exactly. And so, I wanted to bring up this article that you brought to my attention, which I think is a wonderful article, that was in Psychology Today, We just got notified that we're going to have a break now. But when we come back, we're going to talk about this article by Dr. Joe Court, who is a psychologist and sex therapist, the title of which is Masturbation is Sexual Health. And we're going to talk about that in a few seconds when we come back, and we'll talk more about that.
Okay, well, see you shortly after commercial break. Thank you. Welcome back from our commercial break. You're listening to Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio Live. Our phone number here is 951-922-3532. Please call us, ask us our questions. We're here to help you getting answers to your something that you're interested about. And today's topic, we are talking about how to have safe sex during pandemic.
We're talking about that, and our answer is we don't know. We don't know.
Then what are you doing here if you don't know?
We don't know how to have safe sex, except in one instance, and that one instance is where we left off before the commercial break.
Okay.
And that's with the taboo word that nobody wants to talk about.
The M word.
The M word, right? Which is masturbation.
Oh my
right?
God, that's such a sinful
And
thing to
yeah,
do.
and because we have so much misunderstanding, miscommunication, which has been promulgated over the last several hundred years, and even further. And part of why I was saying this in our last program, part of why religion has been so against masturbation starts off with the idea that there's not enough people and we need to populate the earth more. And so if you're masturbating, then you're using up your sexual energy and not creating more people. And I think that's part of why, that's not the only reason, but that's part of why religion has been so against it. Of course, today that's not the case. We have plenty of people,
Right.
and the idea really with masturbation, and we were talking about this article that Dr. Joe Court, who is a psychologist and sex therapist, just published in Psychology Today, is that masturbation is sexual health, and then the subline after that is it's high time we stopped whispering about masturbation and come out about it.
Right.
And so what we need to say is that masturbation is not, it has no negative effects. It's been studied, it's been by scientists for many, many years. It has absolutely no negative effects, except if you feel guilty about doing it.
Right. Actually, I just noticed, that, this month of May, starting from 1990, according to this article, has been actually called Masturbation Month. Isn't that interesting?
Well, what I read here is this Masturbation Month, and I don't know how widely known that was, because it came out in a pretty by somebody who made sex toys and called it Masturbation Month. So I don't know how widely accepted or heard that was. But yeah, but what we were talking about is that masturbation is a way of having safe sex, and it's also a way of keeping yourself healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally, unless you believe that it's a sin, and then you feel guilty about doing it, in which case then it's not necessarily a good thing for you, because guilt, as we know as therapists, always carries subconscious punishment.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, you and I, we were talking yesterday about shame.
Yes.
And you provided a very comprehensive and very insightful explanation about shame. If you don't mind, please, say that.
So so what we say in psychology is that guilt and shame are similar feelings, but not the same. And the difference is that guilt is that we feel badly about something that we've done, a behavior that we've done, that we then look back on and we go, oh, that behavior was inappropriate, or that behavior was hurtful to somebody else, and I regret it.
So guilt means I did something wrong.
I did something wrong, right. Shame is a feeling and an experience of, not that I've done something wrong, although shame may include that I've done something wrong, but shame is that I am something wrong.
Right.
So when we are shamed by another person, we are laughed at, ridiculed, made to feel as if there's something wrong with us.
Right.
And so if we shame somebody and have a very strong reaction to a particular idea that they're expressing, or a particular behavior that they're manifesting, what we're doing is we're creating a state in which they feel like there's something wrong with them as a human being. And that feeling, like we said, guilt and shame carries with it subconscious punishment. And that means that when we experience guilt and shame, and we're unable to move through it and release it, then it stays with us, and it manifests in one of three ways. One way is it affects our bodies. So it can lower our immune system and also create symptoms in our bodies. We can get headaches,
Right.
we can get neck aches, back aches, stomach aches. We can also leave ourselves open to opportunistic infections because it affects our immune system. So that's one way that guilt and shame manifest. The second way is we project it onto other people as though they're bad, and then we start beating them up verbally, sometimes physically too, but certainly verbally. And we make them feel bad. And the third way that it manifests, and this is a very common way, and I've experienced it, is through self-sabotage.
Right.
So we do things or refrain from doing things that can be positive for us as a way of punishing ourselves. And so the more shame we have inside of us that isn't released, and the more guilt that we carry that isn't released, the more one or two or three of these things is going to manifest. It could be just one thing, one way that we have, or it could be two of the three ways, or it could be all three of the three ways.
Exactly. And certainly we are told that masturbation is a shameful, sinful, act, and those who believe in that, philosophy, definitely they feel guilty to do it.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And so when I was 12 years old and I had just discovered my penis and realized how great it felt to touch my penis, and then I was able to find out how wonderful it felt to be able to orgasm and ejaculate. And my mother saw some of my clothing and realized that I was starting to masturbate. She didn't know much about it. She came from a different time and didn't know certainly about that. And we lived next door to a physician, and so she went and talked to the physician and told him. And she said, my son is masturbating, and he said, yeah. And she goes, well, is that normal? And he goes, yes. And then she says, well, when will he stop? and the physician told her, when he dies. and she shared that with me later on. Of course, when I became an adult, she told me about that conversation, and I laughed. But people do have that idea. When I was a kid, they talked about masturbation causing warts on your hand. They talked about masturbation as making you what? What else did they say? Blind, and other negative things, which none of which has been shown to be true. There's no negative effects that we know of, and in fact, quite the opposite is true.
Right. So masturbation is solo sex.
It's solo sex,
and it is safe to do. And then. We know that, when we talk to couples, you and I have had this experience. If they masturbate each other, they kind of, pause. In particular, women have this problem of accepting masturbation as a form of sexual activity, not just by itself, but also even included in their intercourse process, right? And they just can kind of feel comfortable about that.
Right.
But so we need to, as part of feeling comfortable about masturbation, one of it is to really understand our sexuality.
Understand that we
Right.
are all born sexual,
Right.
and that and that our bodies are designed to be sexual,
Right.
and that masturbation is not second-class sex. Masturbation is another form of having sex.
Right.
Yes, and there are people who prefer masturbation to having sex with another person, and we as human beings, when we move into judging that, we limit ourselves and we shame ourselves and others and create negativity where there doesn't have to be.
Right. I mean, there are some writings about how religions and certain cultures kind of don't recommend masturbation. We see that it's not really unique to one region, it's not unique to one culture or to one nation. Generally, masturbation does not have a good image, a positive image, when people learn about each other that so and so is masturbating, right? Some people actually, now I remember, they thought that that's also a sort of a sexual dysfunction, sexual problem, right?
Yes.
They said that that's a form. I'm trying to remember the term here, like paraphilias or something like that.
Well,
right?
yeah. Again, there's judgment attached
Right.
to different forms of sexuality,
Right.
and the more judgment that's attached to it, the more repressed it becomes. And
Mhm.
now we know that repression causes us physical as well as psychological and emotional disturbances.
Right.
Right.
And then, the reality is just like everything else in life, in the moderation and coming up with a balance is important, right?
Well, when you say moderation, there are differences in sex drive.
Right.
So if somebody is masturbating 10 times a day, and that's not interfering with their functioning in the world, who are we to say that 10 times a day is
It's too much. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if they're masturbating 10 times a day and they have an intimate relationship with a partner and they're only having sex with their partner once a month, it might be problematic.
Right.
So it's situational, but it can't be resolved unless it's brought out into the open and discussed.
Exactly. And if it's, the frequency of that interferes with everyday functioning,
Correct.
that's also something that needs to be, considered and be mindful about. And what is the best way, in your opinion, for somebody to masturbate?
The way that feels the best to them.
Okay.
The best way is to to see it as a private act, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We have bathrooms where we go into stalls, or the men stand at urinals, and there's usually a divider between the urinals, and we don't expose ourselves to others. It's a private thing. And so being private doesn't mean that it's nasty. It just means it's private.
Yeah.
We don't move our bowels, and we don't urinate in public, nor should we be sexual with other people or with ourselves in public.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the act.
Right. And also, we know that as sexual beings, we can also have, and we do have, sexual fantasies.
Correct.
So sexual fantasies can be included when people masturbate.
Yeah, well, of course, our sexuality is unique to each person.
Right.
And what turns one person on is not necessarily what will turn another person on.
Mm-hmm.
But just because I like chocolate doesn't mean that I have to think that you're liking vanilla is wrong or evil or sick or perverted. It's simply a matter of choice. I believe that anything that we do that is consensual with another person, and certainly isn't doing physical harm to the other person, is okay. as I believe that any fantasy that we have. And some people have fantasies that would go, wow, how could you have a fantasy like that? It seems weird to me, or you know, and something that I would never think about, and something that wouldn't turn me on in a million years. And so what? So
that's the one of the creative part that I was talking about, that how our fantasies can be unique and creative to us. And also the other thing is that solo sex, just like heterosexual sex or homosexual sex, there is an anticipation of orgasm. So if somebody doing masturbation doesn't reach orgasm, it still is okay.
Of course.
It still is okay.
Of course. Yeah.
We are getting close to the end of our program, and this is perhaps the best and the safest way of having sex, and we like to continue with discussion, but our time is almost up. I'd like to invite you to please join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. At this same station for another episode about relationship addictions and trauma that Dr. Jaffe is going to lead that. And I look forward to joining you tomorrow, and as well as joining you, everybody who's been nice to listen to us. And we would like to invite you to do the same tomorrow at 9 a.m.
And we will always love to end our program with our favorite slogan, right?
All you need is love.
All you need is love.
Okay,
love,
see you
love,
tomorrow.
Love. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Check us out on